Hey guys, welcome to episode number 263. Today is Tuesday, so I have another tank tip for you. Today I have 6 tips actually to prevent heat loss in your aquariums. It's getting cold outside and everyone's electric bill is going to go up a little bit because of our aquariums. So we want to do everything we can to keep the heat inside the aquarium and prevent as much heat loss as possible. So the first tip is to keep your tanks off the floor. This is actually probably the tip that's going to save you the most in heat because it doesn't really matter where you are. If your tank is on the floor, that volume of water is in direct contact with a cold surface. It's a surface that's much colder than the air around it, and it's going to suck the heat right out of your tank. If you think about standing outside on a cold day, maybe on snow for too long, your feet get really cold. The same principle applies. No matter how warm your house is, the floor is always going to be colder than the air around it. So keep your tanks off the floor. Number 2 is cover your tanks. If you think about it, the evaporation that happens from your tank is actually the water molecules that have the most energy, right? So they're the hottest. And so those are going to accumulate on the lid of your tank and drip back down. It's also going to stop the updraft of warm air and moist air from coming off the tank and into the room, which means more of that warm water is staying inside your tank. So definitely make sure all of your tanks are covered. You want to insulate as many sides of your tanks as possible. This is tip number 3. Right here I have insulation on the bottom, which is actually just to level the tank. It's not really meant to insulate it. But if I wanted to, what I could do is actually insulate both sides of the tank here and the back side of the tank as well. And that would actually prevent quite a bit more heat from leaving the sides of the glass and entering the room, which would be good. Obviously, the higher R value you can get out of insulation, the better off you are. And it doesn't really matter what shape or size it is. I could even insulate the sides of this 300-gallon stock tank, and it would help with the heat loss out of the water. Tip number 4, keep your tanks away from drafty windows and doors. I don't really have that problem down here in the basement. There's just a few small windows down here, and I do have basically everything insulated, so there are no drafts coming into this basement, which is good. But a lot of people like to set up their tanks, maybe like a show tank, right in the front entrance of their house. And it might look great. It might, create a great first impression for people walking into your house. But it's also one of the draftiest places in the house, with the door open and close and open and close all winter long. Your tank is going to get shocked with blasts of cold air, and it's definitely going to impact your heating bill. The next thing, tip number 5, is to keep the doors to your fish room closed. I actually have my doors open right now, so I'm not really practicing what I preach. But essentially, the smaller space you have, the better off you're going to be. The less cubic square feet of air you have to heat or keep hot, the better off you're going to be. If I have a giant room, all of these tanks are just going to continue to lose energy to that room because of the temperature differential. But if I have a small room, less square feet or cubic feet of air, that air is eventually going to warm up, and I'll get less heat loss out of the tank as a result. And tip number 6, which you'll hear a lot in the hobby, is actually to heat the room. It's actually, in most cases, cheaper to heat the room, the air, than it is to heat the water. And that can be true. Sometimes it's not true. It depends on how big of a room you have. It depends on how drafty that room is. It depends on what you're using as a source of heat for that room. If it's gas versus electric versus oil, those prices are going to differ. One thing that I do have down here that is pumping quite a bit of heat into the room is actually my dehumidifier. It's heating up the room and it's pulling the moisture out of the air, so that keeps the room a little bit warmer than it otherwise would. And actually all of the heaters keep the room a little bit warmer as well. So I don't have a separate heating system installed in this room to heat the room, but the dehumidifier is actually a pretty good start for me, at least. Anyways guys, those are my 6 tips to prevent heat loss in your aquarium or in your fish room. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned a little something, and I'll see you guys later.